Alrighty, so we're freaking live. I don't know if that's appropriate to say, but I just said it, and it's Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday crossover special where I'm at the bottom. It's okay, but you're at the top. I thought we'd be like this, but then when we went like that, we were too small. So it's the holiday special. If you're live, if you're watching live, comment below where you're from, where you're at, and what you'd like us to talk about. We may not have all day to talk, but we're going to talk about some interesting developments that took place yesterday, transition over to planning for next year. But remember, like, comment, subscribe, share this out so we can keep this interactive with the live audience as well. Now, this is a first. Kind of feels like a 90-Day Fiancé special where he meets him at the airport. No, that didn't happen. Where we get two people in the same spot finally. Adam, welcome to the crossover. Nick, welcome to the crossover. Say hi and introduce each other, and let's get this going.
Hi, that's Adam Merson.
And Nick Frumpkin. We were talking off, off the live feed before we started, and I said, "Hey, Nick, nice to meet you." We've never actually really met. We're kind of all a part of this, and never actually communicated amongst the two of us. So, looking forward to our show today.
Absolutely, should be a lot of fun.
I think it's a lot of fun too, because you guys have tons of experience, tons of life experience, tons of Medicare experience, and different views of the same experiences. Like just the way the interviews flow between the two of you gets it to be different. So getting everybody on the same live stream today makes it even more fun. So yesterday, I got to plug in my new Christmas present from Adam and launch a breaking news announcement that a certain carrier, well, now that I'm terminated, I'll just say it, KSKJ terminated its largest point of distribution.
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, I knew something would happen in December. December is always the time for something to happen. I didn't expect this to happen, but Nick, your favorite toy was taken away. Your best present was thrown out under the Christmas tree. You're crazy. Give us your thoughts on the breaking news from yesterday as KSKJ essentially euthanizes itself on the open market.
Well, I mean, right? Like this is actually my biggest concern, because I actually like the people that run KSKJ. I've gotten to know them fairly well over the last couple of years, and vaguely concerned for what this means for their decision making. What I can tell you is this: they are trying very hard to launch a new product. And this new product is much more in line with being a fully underwritten whole life product than it is a final expense product. And when the new product launches, and they've been telling everybody this for like a year and a half at this point, when the new product launches, the plan is to pull the final expense product and just go all in on this new quasi fully underwritten sort of final expense simplified issue thing. It is very, very, very similar in what they're pitching to like what the Baltimore Life A Priority used to be, before Baltimore Life decided that they couldn't offer it to all ages or all face values, and kind of pulled back on who they were offering it to. KSKJ, my assumption is, got told by their reinsurers and their investors and whoever else is helping them with this product that they were going to have to do the same thing as what Baltimore Life did with A Priority. And they didn't want to. And so they decided to, instead of changing the product, get rid of what they viewed as the problem, which is agents working leads. I don't understand it. It's not the choice that I would have made. I feel like it is a strange decision. I can tell you, I know 2/3 of KSKJ's business since 2016 has all come from the National Underwriting Service. So they are willingly terminating the channel that provided them with like 66% of their business.
It's literally the epitome of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I don't throw any bathwater out these days. It's a very old school kind of phrase. I haven't thrown any babies out either. But in the process of getting an oil change yesterday, I felt exceptionally thrown out in the bathwater.
Yeah, it was very weird. Although good on you for waiting till after AEP to get your oil changed.
Now, did they talk about like the specifics as far as the reasoning behind this decision? Like,
I mean,
was it persistency? Was it like mix of business? Like what?
So so they said, and I don't know how they justify this, but they said that it was based off of persistency. They have also said, as recently as September of this year, that National Underwriting Service had the best persistency of any of the agencies that they worked with.
So
I don't know how both of those things are true.
No, to say in an email that you have persistency problems, but then before you had good persistency, I feel like is a contradiction. Am I mislabeling that?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I guess if I want to be super generous, maybe they were speaking off the cuff in September when they had a meeting with like a recorded meeting with the entire national, like everybody who is contracted with the National Underwriting Service had the ability to be on this phone call with the president of KSKJ, who said that, you know, the persistency was fantastic. And that is one of the things that he loved about working with us. But it is possible he was wrong then, and he didn't have facts to back that up. I don't know. All I know is that is something that he said, and then this is something else that they said later.
Both of those things cannot be true, it's safe to say. Adam, from a carrier perspective, you worked at a carrier level for a very long time, longer than most are ever in the industry. And I think that some people in the industry don't even realize that a final expense sale, you sell Mildred tomorrow a policy, God bless you for selling it on Saturday, doesn't make the carrier a penny for years. I mean, we're talking 3, 5, 7. I've heard different answers. A very long time, probably 5 to 7 years. And from a carrier perspective, where you spent a lot of time, talk about the value of persistency, the quality of business, not just giving a carrier all your bad business. Give us some insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, those are some things, you know, I'm sitting here just trying to wrap my head around with just the reasoning behind their decision. One thing, the carriers, they want a good mix of business. But the thing with KSKJ, I mean, they had like the best rates out there. So to me, I feel like they're going to get a good mix of business. They're not just going to get the modified business. They're not just going to get whatever. I mean, they're going to get decent business because their rates are good. I mean, maybe there's agents that don't lead with them, but they'll use them as like their price buster, and they're going to put good business there too. Like I said, it's not like they're just sending poor quality modified business. To me, that would be more of like a persistency issue if they're sending them all their bad business. Yeah. For instance, like let's say you have the best modified rates out there and that's your niche. Well, what do you think? What kind of business you think is going to be coming your way? You're going to get all the junk. You're going to get all the modified business that the agent is writing because it's the best modified rate, but that's going to lead to so many more death claims. We talk about the profitability. Like you said, it could be 4 years, could be 5 years. I've heard 7 years. I've heard 17 years, like crazy. If it takes 17 years for a piece of business to be profitable, well, then you probably shouldn't be in the final expense business, because how many pieces of final expense business are even going to last 17 years?
Almost none.
Yeah.
Almost none.
So yeah, again, you know, that's like I said, the tough thing with this one is just kind of wrap my head around that. I could see, like I said, if people were just writing their modified business, but I think they're probably getting a pretty good mix of business. So yeah, it's mind boggling to me, but it doesn't bother me because I look at it as just a a way to be able to build off of it. And I know I can grab a lot of agents that were happy with that product and put them in other situations now.
I think that's a good example of segueing into the conversation about being independent, in the sense that you've got multiple products that you can sell. And this isn't the first time this has happened. Like, I opened the conversation today. GCU exited the market in mid-December about 2 years ago. Settlers Life disappeared over Thanksgiving about 5 years ago. Sons of Norway pulled a GI product with no notice. I mean, obviously, the cheapest product in the market that accepts everything couldn't possibly last forever. This is not unheard of. Nope. Even Transamerica, Nick, I remember one of our first live videos pulled over in a parking lot in the dark, discussing changes to Transamerica. Like, this is the season that kind of thing happens. So what is an agent to do when their products change and they're that quickly?
Who's this question going to? Because I don't want to still.
Let's start with you, Nick, and then we'll get Adam's impression on what to do when things change like this.
I mean, I think the most important thing about being an independent agent is that you are actually independent, and that you have not made yourself inadvertently captive by only really working with one company and really only understanding one company and only really knowing what to do with one company. KSKJ essentially choosing to leave the final expense market. I mean, they're technically in the final expense market for a little while longer, but I mean, honestly, even with the people that they didn't terminate, when they pull that final expense product in whenever that ends up happening, they're making noises like it's going to be January, but we'll see what happens. When they do finally pull that final expense product and replace it with their new product, it's not going to be a final expense product anymore. Choosing to get out of that is going to mean that everybody's going to have to figure out a way to pivot. Everybody's going to have to find a different carrier to work with. And this happens. Carriers raise rates, right? Carriers change their underwriting. My favorite carrier for years and years and years was not KSKJ. But my favorite carrier changed their application process and their underwriting in such a way that it became too difficult for me to write them. And I haven't written them in like a year and a half. They're still a good carrier. They're, it's why I'm not mentioning them by name, because like, I still like them. They're a perfectly good carrier. They're just not a good carrier for me anymore as an agent. And that's rough, but they're like one of like 20 carriers. There's so many options. And many agents get really, really hung up on price. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of agents starting to say is like, how am I going to replace business anymore? And I don't see that as being an option. I mean, like, as being a problem. I don't see you not being able to replace bad carriers just because it's now $5 a month more expensive. If the margin was so slim that a $5 per month difference in premium was going to be the difference between whether you replaced or not, you probably were you actually replacing that policy anyway? Like, that's not a big difference.
We got a lot of people joining us. So if you're on right now and you have a comment, a question, a concern about the news that broke yesterday, we're happy to discuss it live. We're terminated, so we could discuss it without any backlash of being terminated again. Hey, it's a great time to talk about it. And we're also going to spend at least a few minutes talking about next year. So I appreciate everyone that's on. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know anything you want us to talk about as well. Adam, I remember the organization you used to work with, a 3-letter carrier based out of the West Coast that will remain nameless, as I am not terminated with them, changed their product. They went from a really great product that got more expensive and then more expensive, and then they took it and replaced it with a more liberal but even more expensive product. Then they changed the rates again. Like, in that situation, it's just another example of carriers making product changes. But at the agent level, it shouldn't be able to disrupt our ability to sell. And what are your thoughts about this?
Well, again, I mean, it all comes down to profitability. If a company doesn't feel like their current product with their underwriting and everything else is profitable or is taking too long to become profitable, they're going to have to make some changes and they're going to have to make some adjustments, and that's just part of it. Yeah, it's tough. That's where, again, it's kind of hard to solely focus on one company because, again, these changes, let's say these KSKJ guys, I mean, I'm sure because of the fact that their rates were as good as they were and their underwriting is pretty decent, I'm sure there were a lot of agents out there that solely used them that are now probably sitting around wondering, where should I go? What should I do? And again, there's so many different companies. We talk about, someone even commented on here about the Polish Falcons, and because there are some comparables there with the fact that, well, they're both a fraternal, their EAPs are almost identical, but they're not in every state. They're like in like 6, 7, 8 states. I mean, so it's not like everybody has. Yeah, and that's not like everybody has that ability to be able to get that contract. But yeah, it was kind of funny. Last night I had somebody texting me that said, "Hey, Adam, I got some agents that are really ticked off that we're writing a lot of KSKJ and they're looking for some help and they're looking for another carrier." And then about 10 minutes later, the guy messaged me back and he said, "Yeah, I mentioned the Polish Falcons to these agents and they said that, well, their rates are good, but their underwriting is just a little tighter than KSKJ." And I replied back, "Well, at least they're still in business." So, so who cares how KSKJ's underwriting was? You can't write it anymore. You have to make adjustments to your business now.
Yeah, we're getting some good questions here that I think we can answer live before my house breaks out into full Christmas chaos today. How important is it now than ever to have exclusive leads? Well, I'll give you my take. I'll ask for Nick's. We'll take Adam's from there. I don't believe in such a thing. Like, here's my mentality, and follow me on this. All leads are old leads because we're selling to old people. Like, for real. Like, and Mildred filled out my lead. Then she filled out when Nick mailed that same town. Then she filled it out when my other agent mailed that town. Then she filled it out when Lincoln Heritage mailed that town. Then she filled out the Medicare lead and then the food card lead. Like, realistically, exclusive leads is like a feel-good blanket that we put on and we market in recruiting. But in practicality, I don't believe it to be a real thing. In rapid fire, so we can answer some of these questions, Nick, your thought on the value of exclusive leads in this particular setting?
Well, I'm going to say what you just said is a feature, not a bug. Like that is the value of, especially with direct mail. That's the value of the direct mail lead. You want the person that has sent in lead after lead after lead. Like, the worst prospect is the person who sends in a lead and they've never sent in a lead before, and you're showing up for the very first time and you're like the first insurance agent that they've ever talked to. That person sucks as a prospect. Like, you can maybe sell them, I'm not saying it, but that's way more work. The person that you show up to and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've sent in 3 of these before. I've talked to 7 different agents. I know what this is. Let's just do this now. I'm ready." Like, that's the best prospect, right?
Well said. Adam, your thought on exclusive leads, which I think is also an interesting conversation to later to unpack with FCC and digital marketing, but exclusive, non-exclusive, any thoughts on that so we can answer some of these questions?
I agree with Nick. I think that people are filling these cards out all the time. People are responding to ads all the time. I mean, heck, I've worked so many Facebook leads this year. And with that, I mean, people are filling that format all the time. They're getting bombarded with phone calls. And that's why it's very difficult to get them to answer the phone. I wrote a lead yesterday that my appointment setter had set for me. And this was a lead that was from like January. And she set the appointment. I went and wrote it up. And, with that said, the lady, she didn't know that it was a form that she filled out from January. She thought it was one that she had just recently filled out. Because she had filled out other forms. But it just took someone like me to show up finally. I had been out there. It was kind of like the hit or miss, having trouble reaching the person, and just, you know how it is. You kind of move on to your new leads. But
I'll tell
that's the luxury of having the appointment setter. They're going to keep calling those old leads for me.
Yeah, I had an appointment set off of an age direct mail from probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago in a building I've been in for years. And as I'm finishing up, the lady says something to me, and I thought this was like a gag, and I was on TV. She's like, "Those are some old leads you're putting in your bag." Like, Mildred, what? I didn't even talk. Like, I don't know where that came from or why she said it, or if this was a spoof or a secret shop. But I mean, they know the game that we're playing at this point too. So let's all be real about what we're thinking when we're thinking about what we can and can't control. Next question, as we answer some of these, is it says, did I hear that KSKJ won't be giving out the book of business to the agent? Well, yeah. Here's the thing. If you're terminated by any carrier, even if you're in a 6-month wait from leaving one place and going to another, the moment your contract is inactive, your access to that carrier's book of business is inactive. And here's the thing that I posted in the group this morning. It's not your client. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. It's not Nick's client. It's not Adam's client. It's the insurance company's client. We're merely a method in which they acquired their client. And we need to keep good records of these people that we're sitting with for situations exactly like this and other ones. So, Nick, your thoughts on keeping good records so that when a carrier is no longer accessing that information, you're not in the blind.
Yeah, no, you have to have a CRM. You have to have your own CRM. You have to have a CRM that you're in control of. And by CRM, I don't mean like it doesn't have to be like a fancy go high level thing. You have to just have like an Excel spreadsheet could be your CRM. It doesn't matter. Some way that you're tracking what you've written, who's active, who's not active. And so you can stay on top of it because they are your clients. They're just not only your clients.
Exactly.
And it is important that you treat them like they are your clients and not the carrier's clients, just the way that the carrier treats them like they're their clients and not your clients. You've got to be in charge of that stuff. I was, it was sent panic waves through a lot of people that I knew trying to like log into the KSKJ website and download their book of business before it was too late.
It was too late. It was already too late.
But it was already too late.
It was already too late.
Yeah. And
why the heck would an agent think that they're going to hand out their book of business? Like, no, that'd be suicide.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that. Now, the weird thing is, because this may be a quirk that KSK just hasn't thought through yet. We also don't have access to commission statements. There is no way to access a commission statement from KSKJ without going through their web portal, which we're no longer allowed to access.
Are they going to mail it to you? Like, how are you going to confirm that you're getting paid? No
idea. It's an excellent question.
I think here's a funny comment on that. I got a vector threat from a carrier. They randomly pull vectors and said, "You're on vector for Oxford Life and GCU." I'm like, well, I definitely paid off Oxford Life because I definitely didn't want that to be an issue. And GCU, how am I on vector for a company that went belly up? That's interesting enough. But there's no record. I'm not supplied a record from GCU of chargebacks, commission statements, of accurate accounting. So if you're going to try to put me on vector, but you can't reflect a fact that I haven't been paid a penny in 2 years, let's go. Game on that conversation.
Well,
Adam.
And that's easily disputable.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Adam, what are your thoughts on record keeping real quick? And then we can go through some of these other questions.
Well, again, my prior company, they weren't a fan of handing out that information to agents. I was able to get it every once in a while, but usually it had to be an agent that had written quite a bit of business, that had a good relation, that had good persistency. Like they didn't want to just hand out that book of business. And I understand it. I mean, I can see both sides of it. But I do agree that I think that it's the agent's job to take care of that themselves. You shouldn't have to depend on a carrier to get that information. But then I also think that agents that are out there that are doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing when it comes to replacing their own business and stuff like that, they're not going to have to call the carrier to get their client list. I mean, they've planned ahead to do their fraudulent activities, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I don't think we should be in the market of rolling good quality business that are on the books.
Yeah.
But I also I'm not going to be motivated to conserve if I'm notified of a lack of a policy status anymore. Like, how are we even going to know if Mildred is active or not anymore is the more concerning part. Because I mean well for the people that I sold. I don't want them to think they have insurance and then they don't because they don't know any better.
Well, I mean,
as long as they're the carrier. I'm sorry, Nick.
No. I was going to say, like, if we're not getting commission statements, we can't know. So we're going to actually have to just do periodic annual reviews, which is something that we should be doing anyway, and isn't something that not enough final expense agents do. And honestly, if they lapsed, I'm not contracted with KSKJ anymore. I can't save the business and put it back with KSKJ. It's not an option. But I mean, again, they're my client too. I'm going to make sure they have life insurance somewhere.
Appreciate the comments, guys. If you have more questions, more concerns, more hot topics you want us to discuss, we got a few more minutes to do so live this morning. Like the video, comment, and share.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, the insurance carriers, they also need to remember that where would they be without the agents that are out there writing the business? So there has to be good relationships there. There has to be some trust there. You can't look at it as all agents are bad and that all agents are out there just trying to screw over companies. Exactly. Again, there's got to be a balance there. There's got to be a good relationship, and but that's the great thing about our business. If you're writing business with a company and you almost kind of feel that way, like maybe you even feel like they're looking over your business like with a magnifying glass and things like that. I mean, that's a great thing. There's so many different options out there. You don't have to write with a company if they're not providing you or supplying you with the things that you feel would be necessary to be successful. So, but yeah, I think there needs to be a balance there. And I think companies need to understand that where would we be as a company without the hardworking agents that are out there? Agents can write business anywhere they want. So
good one.
The carriers
I give a lot of
respect
that. I give a lot of respect to Transamerica. Steve Weber answers his emails, and I'm merely a number to him. He's got folks he'll direct me to. He'll take feedback from the field, and nothing's perfect about Transamerica. Nothing's perfect about any individual carrier. We've got another question I wanted to answer, but before we get to that point, I think one of the most messed up things I've ever seen a carrier do is cancel the freaking trip. Like, not only could they have waited like 90 days to bend you over backward, but they took away something that you earned. Nick, how angry was Ivy to find out Curacao was all alive?
Well, so I'm of two minds, right? Like, on the one hand, we had actually like spent some money that is not easily refundable, because like plane tickets had been booked, we'd been given an itinerary, we'd been told what our hotel room was, like we knew, like we were like, oh, this is real. So like we'd booked some stuff and not all of it was refundable. I don't know, maybe KSKJ is going to pay me back for that stuff. We'd booked it in good faith. They might not. We'll find out. It's only about $1,000 that we spent, but like it's $1,000 is $1,000. I would like to get that back. I do understand, though, from KSKJ's perspective, 80% of the people that were going to be going to Curacao with them were going to get terminated. And that was probably going to be uncomfortable for them once they'd made that decision. I can't see them, once they've made the decision that they were going to terminate, I can't see how they could keep the trip in place. I do feel like the timing of the announcement was probably not super necessary unless they really, really want to announce this new product in Curacao and they really, really want to make sure that the agents that they're terminating don't get access to this new product, because that, again, becomes very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I just think it's in bad form. Like, realistically speaking, I did go to the prom with a girl that had dumped me a few weeks prior, but I didn't have any other options. That would have been what it was like going to Curacao knowing you were terminated. But in all fairness to the hard work people had done and the trip they had earned, which is still optional all the way to the end, I think they could have waited 90 days to F you over.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this was a bad look on their part. I understand it. Of all of the things that they've done, I understand this one the most. But I think it was also kind of the most hurtful choice that they made, even though it's maybe the most understandable.
Yeah, Adam, you dealt with this a little bit during COVID and with the other carrier in Utah that we still have active contracts with, consistently changing, couldn't pick where the trip was. Did they even ever have the trip they couldn't figure out where to have it at?
Yeah, they never canceled a trip. I mean, I qualified for Israel, was supposed to go to Israel, was looking forward to it. Because of COVID, yeah, all of that changed. They ended up moving the trip to Hawaii. So yeah, they never canceled the trip. And fortunate of that, I mean, I couldn't imagine, just kind of sitting here thinking about that, agents that are out there. That's something that agents are working for. Like there's agents out there that say, okay, I want to see which carrier has a destination trip that I want to go on, and that's who I want to push my business with this year. So yeah, I mean, that's just a real kick in the nuts, I guess you could say. I couldn't think of a better way to put it, honestly. Someone's out there working hard, and then, oh, sorry, Merry Christmas, you're terminated, and you're not going to go on a trip.
If she's not, like, I did not get, I won't mention names because she didn't specifically give me permission to share this story, but I anonymously, like, I was told a very heartbreaking story from an agent who is reasonably new to the business. Knew enough that she was still on as earned only commissions with KSKJ, because you have to, KSKJ starts everybody off as earned only until they've hit a certain point of production / time. And so she was on as earned commissions only at street level, like 100% commission with KSKJ. And because the trip with KSKJ is a trip that so many people who are part of FEX contracting go on, where she has her contracts, she made it a point to qualify for that trip and wrote over $75,000 of annual premium with KSKJ in a little less than a year.
Incredible.
And she didn't have to do that. And this was going to be the first time that she went out of the country. She just got passports for her children. The passports literally showed up in the mail yesterday. She had really planned on making this a big deal, and put a lot of effort into qualifying for this trip. Where she lives in a state where there are no, there's no limitation on carriers. Like, every carrier I can think of operates in the state that she works in. And so she didn't have to. She chose to, largely because of this trip to Curacao. And her business is good. Her persistency is good. She has no problems. She's not writing bad business. No fault of her own had this yanked out from under her feet and her family's feet. Again, maybe the most understandable thing that KSKJ did, but it is
the least human thing they did.
Yeah, it's sucky.
Yeah.
Matthew mentioned in the comments that at a minimum, they could at least pay for the cost of the trip. And that, I've seen, actually, my dad qualified for a trip with a carrier. They canceled their trip, but I think he ended up getting a check for like $4,000 or $5,000. So yeah, he wasn't too upset. Honestly, I think I would rather take the money over the trip anyways.
I mean, at this point, me too.
Yeah.
When I qualified for Greece with American Amicable, that was canceled because of COVID, and they ACH'd a $4,000 deposit. I mean, you take what you get at that point. I got a plaque for a trip I didn't go on, slightly awkward, but they're a great carrier that hasn't changed a darn thing in forever. So we appreciate American Amicable on that. So final thoughts before we go. Adam, what are you looking forward to in 2024? And then I'll throw the same question over to Nick.
I'm just looking forward to ramping things up. I mean, we had your morning call this morning, and I just kind of talked about how this year was a bit of a transition phase for myself, going from strictly focused on one carrier to now opening myself up to everybody. And so it was a bit of a learning curve, and just really looking forward to the future of really building something and bringing more and more people into it, and doing what we can to help as many agents, put as many agents in a good situation to have that long-term success. So that's really
Nick,
it.
Same question to you. What are you looking forward to for 2024?
Dodger just signed Yamamoto. I'm pretty happy about what the Dodgers starting rotation is looking like right now. From I think 2024 is actually going to be like a pretty interesting year. I'm looking forward to sort of seeing what the FCC regulations end up doing to the industry, if anything. Like I'm just from a kind of a curiosity standpoint, seeing what actually comes of that. I don't think it's going to affect my life at all. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. 2024 should be good though. Like I got stuff planned. I got the first time I'm actually giving myself a solid 3 weeks in a row of vacation in the middle of the year. I'm gonna go take a 3 week long trip to Europe. It should be good. Yeah, I'm very excited about 2024. Big things.
Exactly. I think there's been a lot of foundational work done, a lot of experiences gained, a lot of relationships furthered, a lot of lessons learned. And I think ending this year on a high note is a pretty accurate way to put it. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Everyone that commented, watched, subscribed, interacted with us today, it's much appreciated. Make sure you share our channel and our Facebook group with others that may not know it exists, because Adam puts a boatload of effort into editing, podcasting across all of the platforms. Nick takes time every single Friday to squeeze us in without a dime of return for it. He just does this out of the goodness of his heart. And I just enjoy doing it. Like, even if 3.5 people and a cat watch this video, I had fun doing it with you guys today. So I appreciate each of you taking the time to close the year on a crossover special.
Hey, and don't forget, guys, don't forget those of you that are watching, don't forget, get on Apple or Amazon or a whole bunch of different platforms, Spotify, to get on our podcast and follow for the audio feed. I'm telling you, when you're out in the field, even if you're an agent and you're out in the field working all day, it's great to have just some content to listen to that can even help you maybe get a little better and keep you motivated. So don't forget to follow the audio as well.
Well said. Thanks for being here today. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We celebrate you and your interactions with our group. Take care.
Merry Christmas.